requirement. The A10 Mini accepts 4 HDMI inputs. That means I can connect up to 4 cameras or even computer displays. That's nice because I rarely go more than 4 inputs. The A10 Mini accepts 1080 and 720 HD video formats at various universal frame rates, both progressive and interlaced. Great! All my cameras and computers have HDMI outputs. According to the product description, all connected sources will resync if they operate at different video standards. I hope that means it can really handle unknown equipment when I set it up at new locations. There are 2 video output ports, one HDMI and one USB-C. The HDMI goes into a standard video projector or monitor. The USB-C goes straight into a computer, just like plugging in a webcam or an external webcam. That means I don't need another video converter in between, just like the HDMI to USB converter that I've been using. So, for live streaming, does it connect to the internet directly? No. You connect the USB-C video output port to a computer, and on the computer, run a streaming software like OBS. That's fine with me. Just think of the A10 Mini as an external webcam with multiple camera angles to choose from. On its own, you cannot overlay.
In this video, we're going to look at how to use the secret pro features to turn the A10 Mini into a professional broadcast tool. The A10 Mini is a super affordable 4-input switcher. Blackmagic is clearly going after the creator market with it, rather than their normal professional broadcast market. Just take a look at their marketing images for the Mini compared to the next model up. But the amazing part, and why I think everybody should buy this, including professionals, is that this device is actually a lot more powerful than it looks like on the outside. Out of the box, it's set up to be really easy to use for people who are brand new to the whole concept of switchers. The default mode is that the input buttons actually cut immediately to the camera that is selected, which is great when you're getting up and running. And by default, both the HDMI out and the USB-C show program output. This works great for people who are just getting started with gear like this, but if you are a more seasoned professional used to using the higher end models of ATEM switchers, then this seems like kind of a toy. So we're going to walk through a couple of settings you can change to make this work more like the high-end switchers and really get the most out of this tool. Quick note, this video is not sponsored. I really just am a huge fan of this thing and I am super excited to talk about it. The first thing you're going to want to do is to change this into preview program mode instead of the cut bus mode. The confusing part is that this is not something you do through the regular software control interface. You actually have to do it through a separate application. So go launch the ATEM setup tool and make sure this is plugged in via USB because it doesn't let you control this over the network. Go ahead and click the little icon and that will open up the settings. Go down to switching mode and choose program preview instead of cut bus. Hit save and now it's ready. Now you'll notice when you hit one of the buttons, it turns green, indicating that that input is in preview. And you actually have to press auto or cut to show that camera in the program feed. Next, you're going to want to change your HDMI out to actually be the preview instead of click that, scroll down and choose preview. Now you'll notice that your HDMI output is no longer showing the program feed. It's actually showing the preview of the camera that's about to be cut to. So at this point, things should now already feel a lot more familiar if you're used to the higher end ATEM switchers. And this is where it starts getting useful. So now you can do things like preview your key effects before pushing them live, or even preview your transitions. Toggle this preview transition button on, and then when you press auto, it keeps what's on program out, but you'll see the transition happen anyway on the preview. Okay, next up, you're probably going to want to configure the output format to your particular needs. Go down to this little gear button in the corner, and then you can change the video standard to different frame rates. It is limited to just 1080 resolution. There's no downscaling to 720p. It also doesn't support 4K at all. And you can only choose progressive, not interlaced. But it does give you a wide range of frame rates between 23.98 and 60. While we're in the settings tab here, go over to the audio tab. There's a couple of really cool features in here. You actually have the ability to split the right and left channels from any of your inputs into separate tracks. That can be really handy if you're doing things like running 2 microphones into the camera on the right and left channels. You can get it back out into separate audio tracks here that you can mix independently. Once you actually split one of the audio sources here, you'll now see 2 tracks in the mixer. The other thing you might want to do here is choose whether your 1/8 inch inputs are at mic or line level. That way you get the right levels if you're plugging in a microphone like a lav mic or a line out from another mixer. So let's go dive into the audio mixer now. This is actually something that was previously only available on the higher end models, and now they're putting it in the Mini. You actually now have access to a complete equalizer and dynamics processor built in. This is a huge deal. This is going to give you way better audio without bringing an external mixer. You can actually go in here and tweak things like the EQ for each channel. You can even add a compressor and a limiter. So you really have a lot of tools available in here. I will say the only downside is that there actually isn't a headphone jack on here. So the only way you can hear what you're doing is by monitoring the output from either the HDMI or the USB. Title graphics. And then you can actually push from Photoshop to the media pool directly. This actually makes it really easy to create titles on the fly if you're doing a live event. So once you've got your graphics loaded up in the media pool, you can now drag them into the media player to prepare them. You can use them either as a camera angle, like if you've got a full screen title graphic, or you can actually set the downstream keyer to use the media player as well. And that'll do things like let you create lower thirds or little bugs. Make sure your Photoshop files have a transparent background because it'll actually use the alpha channel and you can actually get gradients that way and very clean edges. So there's no physical button to control the downstream keyer, which means you actually need to control it either from the software control panel or So the next thing you're going to want to do is use an external control surface like this one. I'm a big fan of the Stream Deck. So this has these 12 keys, but each of these keys is actually a screen, and then it can show text or graphics on here. There's a separate app that you can download called Companion, which is what this uses to talk to the ATEM. I'm not going to go into a full tutorial on how to use this with the ATEM. I will leave a link to John Barker's tutorial. He did an excellent tutorial on how to get this up and running from nothing, installing the Companion app and getting it talking to the ATEM. I will say the one thing that's a little bit unique to this is that even though the ATEM software control panel works over USB, the Companion app actually does require a network connection. You need to plug in a network cable between this and your laptop and configure your network as well in order to have that work. So I'll show you how I've got this set up to control some of the particular aspects that would make this Mini very powerful. Let's say, for example, you're doing an event with 3 speakers. You've got a close-up shot on each speaker, and then you've got a wide shot of the group. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to make a button on the Stream Deck, which will cut to one of the speakers, bring in the title, the lower third title with their name, and then fade it out after 5 seconds. And that way you get just quick buttons to be able to cut cameras, bring in the titles, and have it automatically fade out after the right amount of time. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go into the ATEM software control and record a macro. Then we're going to create a button on the Stream Deck to run that macro. Go up here, open the macros window. Recording macros is a little bit finicky because you don't actually get any visual feedback as to the steps that have been recorded already. And you kind of just get one shot to get it right. Press in the control interface will be recorded into the macro. So it's important to remember, don't touch anything right now that you don't want to be part of the macro. So first go into the media pool and then drag your lower third for that speaker into the media player. Go back to the switcher tab and now let's set the program out to that speaker's camera, doing the cut immediately. Now open up the downstream key, choose Media Player 1 and Media Player 1 key, and then press the on air button for that keyer. So right now you should be looking at your camera with that speaker and the lower third overlaid already. So next, click this little add pause at the top. Enter a number of seconds like 5, and that's going to be how long you want the macro to pause running, which means this is how long your lower third will be visible. Click add pause to confirm. Next, we want the lower third to fade out. So click now auto in the downstream keyer. That's going to do a fade out of the keyer. And that's it. Now you can stop recording. And now these steps that you've just done are now recorded in the macro. So next we need to create a button on the Stream Deck to actually run this macro. This is actually a perfect example of where I wish I could actually reassign some of these buttons to other actions like running macros. So Blackmagic, if you're listening, feature request, let me use some of these buttons like the transition durations, because I'm never going to be pressing those ever. Let me just reassign these to macro 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd be very happy. And so instead we're going to create a button on the Stream Deck to actually run this macro. Now, I'm going to assume you've already got Companion up and running and got the Stream Deck connected to it and already loaded the ATEM presets into Companion. If you have not done that yet, pause this video, go watch John Barker's video, and I'll be waiting here when you come back. I promise I won't go anywhere.
Hitchhiked her way across the USA. Block your eye rolls on the way. Shave your legs and the heat was a she said, hey babe.
Elektrisch, CNG, benzine, Seat heeft het allemaal. Zelfs uitzonderlijke salonvoordelen tot €7.130.
Seat.
All right, welcome back. Now you can go here, click buttons, go over to presets and choose the ATEM. Click this macros button, and now you should see your list of recorded macros, including the title you created earlier. Go ahead and drag that macro into the first button on the Stream Deck. So this creates a button. When you tap it, it's going to run the macro. That macro is going to switch the camera, add the lower third, wait 5 seconds, fade the lower third out. I like to go into the button settings here and change the background color to black rather than the default blue, because I don't care about knowing whether or not these macros have already run in the past. While the macro is running, the button will be green, which is kind of cool. It lets you know the lower third is still there and is about to fade out. So if you want to try it out, you can now. Just press this button and you will see the macro play out. Now, of course, you'd then repeat this process to set up similar buttons for each of the 3 speakers. So I mentioned I would show you a trick for debugging your macros. So if you go into the File menu here, click Save, it's actually going to export all of the settings in the ATEM as an XML file. This is also a useful trick if you're managing multiple projects and you want to save settings differently for each project. Open that XML file in a text editor and scroll to the bottom. There, you're going to see your macros. This is actually going to list out, in each macro section, it's going to list out every action you've configured in the macro, like switching cameras or changing what's in the media pool. If you make a small mistake in recording, you can actually go in here, take out the line, change the values, fiddle with it, reorder things as needed, and that's often easier than trying to re-record the macro. So you can do whatever you want in here, change settings, just make sure it's still valid XML, and then go ahead and save the file, and you can load it back in. So back in.
Even testen of dit geluid goed is. Even testen. Even naar hier gaan. ATEM Software Control. Audio. Mic 1, ja. Dus deze mag dan uit. Oké. Even testen of dit werkt. Goed is. Even testen. Naar hier gaan. Atem. Audio. Mic 1.
This thing doesn't care what you...
Oké, dit is een test op micro 2. Ah nee, dit is een test op, camera 4. En dit is een test op camera 1, 4. Is het geluid synchroon? Ik heb geen idee. We zullen even testen of dit werkt.
connected to input 3. I've got this little camera here as my shot of the switcher itself. This is the Sony RX0. It's about as small as a GoPro, but it's way better quality. And this is on input 2. And lastly, input 1 is this iPad playing a presentation in Keynote. This could also be a computer or a video game console that you're playing a game on. And now already with just these inputs, you can make a pretty high quality live stream. You can switch from your wide shot to your close shot. You can even show the buttons on the switcher here. Can show my screen, and I can even turn on picture-in-picture, and now you see me talking over the slides. That, I think, is already super powerful and will really up your game on your live streams and your webinars. Oh, I know another one we can try. Let me go grab my Switch. I've got this little camera here as my shot of the switcher itself. This is a Sony RX0. It's about as small as a GoPro, but it's way better quality, and this is on input 2. And lastly, input 1 is this iPad playing a presentation in Keynote. This could also be a computer or a video game.
Even wachten tot geluid.
And now already with just these inputs, you can make a pretty high quality live stream. You can switch from your wide shot to your close shot. You can even show the buttons on the switcher here. You can show my screen, and I can even turn on picture-in-picture, and now you see me talking over the slides. That, I think, is already super powerful and will really up your game on your live streams and your webinars. Oh, I know another one we can try. Let me go grab my Switch.
Oh nee, dat is lang wachten. Oké, dit is een test van camera 1, geluidszync. En dit is een test van camera 2, geluidszync.
doing any post-production work later. And of course that also means one less thing to carry around. You don't need to carry an external audio interface because you can just plug your microphones directly into this. Alright, now let's talk about outputs. There are two different ways to get video out of this. There's an HDMI output, and there's also a USB-C port. The HDMI out will let you connect to a monitor or to an external recorder like this one. And the USB-C port connects to a computer, and then there it shows up as a webcam, just like any other webcam. And that means you can use any app on your computer with this, including streaming apps like Wirecast and OBS, or conferencing apps like Skype and Zoom. You can just go into your normal settings in the app and choose this camera from the menu. And then whatever input you've enabled on the ATEM is what shows up as the webcam in the computer. This is the cheapest way you can start a multi-camera production streaming to YouTube or Twitch, since you can use the free OBS app and get up and running in a few minutes. This also gives you a very easy way to up the production quality of webinars you're hosting, since you'll be able to switch camera angles or even switch between PowerPoint and live coding. There are a couple more ways you can use this HDMI out port, and that requires going into the software control panel. So you can actually change it from outputting the main program feed and instead show the preview feed. And that'll let you do things like preview your green screen effect or your picture-in-picture before you actually push it live to the feed. If you're going to be streaming gameplay on this or feeding a projector in the room, then you'll probably want this last option here, which is Camera 1 Direct. That basically copies the HDMI signal from input 1 and outputs it directly, bypassing most of the circuitry, giving you no latency on the output. That's fantastic for gaming so that you can see the game in real time, but also if you're projecting back out into a room at a small event, there's no delay there either. And then you can turn on picture-in-picture and put yourself down in the corner overlaid on that screen. There are a whole bunch more features in this thing, way more than I have time to cover in this first video. So let me know down in the comments what questions you have, and I will make sure I talk about them in a future video. I am super excited to play around with this thing more, and I'm definitely gonna make more videos on this, so stay tuned. If you are thinking about buying this, please click the link below. It's an affiliate link, and I get a small kickback if you buy it at no cost to you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Danger, danger, danger! Snel, sterk, volhardend. Je bent weer vrij. Nieuw Crocodile